Good afternoon, everyone. So, we want to thank you all for joining us today here at the Harris County Democratic Party. We wanted to do a presentation to give you all basically an understanding of what we do here in the elections department. I hope everyone is well and doing fine and feeling healthy and enjoying somewhat of this quarantine. I know it's hard, and I know there's a lot going on in the world, but maybe we could, you know, find some positivity in it. And yeah, so my name is Devon Rushing. I am the elections director here at the Harris County Democratic Party, and I've been working out and cooking a lot and eating a lot since we've been social distancing. It's been really hard, but I've been trying to, make some positivity out of it, have a little bit of fun, cleaning up my house a lot too.
A lot of laundry, a lot of cleaning.
Exactly. Just trying to find things to do. So Polly, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Pulwisha Sharwani, or Polly for short, and I was the Bruce and Diane Bruce and Diane Mosier Spring Fellow. And then during the primary, I hopped onto the elections team, and now fulfilling the role of an elections coordinator, which combines all of the elections assistant jobs. And I've been really enjoying spending a lot of time with my family since I am home during quarantine, and I have a huge family and we're all in this together. So we've been really enjoying each other's company right now. And Nicole?
So hi everyone, I'm Nicole Peterson. I am an attorney that helps, I lead HCDP's voter protection efforts. I've been spending quarantine trying to homeschool my kids while doing my job, while I obsessively read the news about voter protection.
All right, so we're going to jump in here. Today's agenda, we're going to go over some updates regarding the primary runoff election. We're going to talk about what is an election judge, give you a synopsis of what the Harris County Clerk Office and ourselves do in conjunction with one another. We're going to talk a little bit about election security and voter protection, voting during COVID-19, and we'll open the floor to answer a few questions before we leave the presentation. Okay, so primary runoff election update. Just to give you some dates here for some deadlines in case you don't know, voter registration deadline is June 15th. Vote by mail application deadline is July 3rd. Early voting is July 6th through the 10th, and election day is July 14th. And just, for previous knowledge, the early voting days and election day have both been changed by the Secretary of State due to COVID-19. They pushed the dates back in order to give us time to social distance and, see if things change by then. So those dates have been changed, and these are the updated dates. Again, early voting is July 6th through the 10th, and election day is July 14th. What is an election judge? Okay, so we're finding here in the election department that a lot of people actually really do not understand what an election judge is. So an election judge is a person empowered by Harris County to oversee the operations of a designated polling location for a specific election. So basically this person is in charge of that polling location. And I'm going to explain to you a few of those duties. So the presiding judge. The presiding judge is responsible for picking up and dropping off all materials needed for the polling location, properly setting up the polling location, opening and closing that location according to designated times, ensuring voter accuracy while maintaining a safe bipartisan atmosphere. I find this one to be very important and very vital. We're doing this for our democracy, and it's important to know that even if we're in a room with Republicans and Democrats, it is so important and vital to keep that atmosphere bipartisan and make sure everyone feels comfortable being there, because we're there to do what? Vote, right? And that's part of who we are as a democracy. So I think that part is very important. Also, the presiding judge is responsible for hiring required staff. Typically, that'll be 5 clerks and 1 alternate judge. That is subject to change based on the election, but typically 5 clerks and then 1 alternate judge.
And also to add, the party and also the county clerk's office will assist in staffing.
Correct. Awesome. Thanks, Polly. So, presiding judge versus alternate judge. Here's another thing. We are finding that a lot of people don't realize exactly what the difference is. So, a presiding judge is officially responsible and in charge of a specific polling location, while the alternate judge serves in a limited deputy capacity to the presiding judge. In the event that the presiding judge cannot be there, i.e., they're ill, or maybe someone in their household is ill, or maybe a family emergency, the alternate judge is responsible for stepping in for the presiding judge and taking over. Also, the alternate judge serves as support to the presiding judge for whatever the presiding judge may need help with while running that polling location. So also, a precinct chair versus an election judge. So the precinct chair, as a Democratic chair, you will be given priority if you wish to serve as an election judge at your poll location. The county chair shall provide a list of names of persons eligible for appointment as election judge. So what we do here at HCDP, we give precinct chairs provide the right of first refusal to precinct chairs. So we call every last precinct chair, and we get a verbal yes or no for them if they would like to serve as a presiding judge. Now, that is a rule we set ourselves to give courtesy to the precinct chairs. However, if the precinct chair does not want to serve as presiding judge, then we begin to reach out to other people to take that position.
Okay, so you want to be an election judge. All right, so there are basic fundamental requirements, and then there are criteria that's set by us as a party. The basic requirement is that you are a U.S. citizen and you are a qualified voter of the territory of the election. Now, the vetting process is, it can be limited because we don't conduct those extensive background checks, nor do we have the capacity or time to do that. What we do make sure is that they are registered Democrat voters, that they voted Democrat in at least the last 3 elections, meaning Obama and Hillary. There are going to be instances for the upcoming general where people have switched parties, and we understand that, but our aim is to only have Democrats be presiding judges, historic Democrats for our polling locations. And then having the experience at a polling location is crucial, like not just being a clerk, but also serving as an alternate and having that judges training multiple times is important to us. Now, if we run into a situation where there is a shortage of experienced, seasoned judges, we will take recommendations from precinct chairs. We'll take recommendations from the county clerk's office, and when that happens, our criteria is some kind of proven background in being a supervisor or a manager or a community leader, just because the role of a judge is so important to ensuring election security. responsibility of the county clerk. So they do possess a huge responsibility to administer these elections. And as many of you have witnessed and have experienced, the amount of people working for the county clerk's office to hold elections is huge, and they work long hours and hard days just like the judges do. They have to provide training to all the presiding and alternate judges, and that these trainings are routinely updated to maintain accordance with the law. They create the ballot for the county and state and federal elections, which also has to be in accordance with state law, and the parties are, we work together to create that ballot. And establishing the number of early voting locations in Harris County and the voting hours. So now this is something that Democrats take very seriously, just because of the level of disenfranchisement of Democrat voters in Harris County. Polling locations play a key role in combating some of that. And we understand as a party and are very mindful of the fact that a lot of our polling locations, there's a story behind them, that they're community-based, and we are in no position or desire to disrupt that just because of the history of Texas and the South. And we can go into that more towards the end with our questions regarding the polling locations. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so again, election day polling locations, it's the same for early vote. So polling locations are selected based on a number of things. One of them is the voter turnout. As mentioned, for Democrats, community-based polling locations are vital to our party, so that is something we strive to maintain. Also, accessibility, ADA compliance. And we'll go into this more in detail with Nicole. Right now, looking for polling locations that can, if we do end up having to have a lot of polling locations open, that can provide safe distancing. And so gymnasiums are our preference. Large spaces that we've heard, like some churches can supply. So another thing that the county clerk's office does, of course, is securing the election equipment and accepting requests for ballots to be sent by mail. These are, of course, extremely important to election security. And storing official campaign disclosure forms for local candidates, and archiving official election results. And we use those election results also that is administrative, but also they log for us the voter turnout, and that's something that our elections department relies on as well. So they house a lot of data that we need to maintain efficient and fair and equitable elections.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what Polly was just explaining, the county clerk's office also provides an awesome platform and tool during elections where you can go on their website and you can check your polling locations as well as the wait time for those polling locations. That came into play after Diane Troutman became the county clerk, and I think it's really cool, and I think it's a great tool. Just in case someone out there didn't know that that's there, it is there, and it's an awesome way to find out if the lines are long or they're short, and you can go to the place that's better fit.
Okay, so Devon and Polly are responsible for staffing the elections. What I do is I try to protect the vote of all Harris County voters. I'm very passionate about voter protection. I feel that this is the umbrella over everything we care about. So if your issue that's closest to your heart is gun control or immigration or civil rights, all of that falls under voter protection, because we can't affect change if we don't have the right leaders in power, and our voices can't be heard to put those leaders in power without the ability to vote. So I hold this, I think the ability to vote is sacred, and I fight to make sure that everyone who can legitimately vote gets to vote in a safe and positive way. So what is voter protection? The mission of voter protection is to, very simply, combat voter suppression, right? So this could be overt voter suppression, where you have different groups actually physically keeping people from the polls. We also see legislation that attempts to do that in slightly more subtle ways. There's also in Texas a history of administrative hurdles which amount to voter suppression, such as, many would argue that the voter ID laws are one of these tactics, right? So that these rules put more and more obstacles between the voter and their ability to vote. And then we also combat just misapplication of the Texas election code. For any of you who are on the call who are election judges, you know that that code is complex. There are a lot of rules and people make mistakes. It's hard to remember all of it. So we try in voter protection to support the judges to help them apply the rules according to how those rules are written. Next slide. Oh, okay. So why is voter protection so important? And I've talked about that a little bit. These pictures, the one on the left that says "this is ridiculous," that's from Milwaukee just 2 weeks ago. I'm sure you all saw in the news that the incredible long lines that people in Milwaukee faced in order to vote when over 100 polling locations were reduced to just 5 because of the COVID-19 crisis. And also, let me just say, I know probably most of you are on this call because you want to hear about how elections are going to be held in light of coronavirus, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. I see part of my job this year in fighting for voter protection is also to fight for safe elections, which means elections where we can vote without fear of being infected with coronavirus. The picture on the right is from Texas on Super Tuesday. That's at TSU. Many of you also read about, or perhaps were even in, those 7-hour lines at TSU and one other location in Harris County. Those are all issues that voter protection tries to fight. So we want to do our best to ensure that there are not long lines, because a long line is a form of voter suppression, because there are people who do not have the time to wait because they don't have childcare or they don't have time off work, and that they are disenfranchised by that line. So we try to fight lines. We try to fight misinterpretation of the code. For example, a judge who perhaps does not realize that a passport counts as a valid form of ID in Texas and has turned voters away who are trying to vote with passports, right? We would reach out to that judge and explain that a passport is in fact a legitimate form of ID. Okay, so next slide. All right, so voter protection, there are sort of 4 prongs underneath voter protection, and I'm gonna go through each one of these in turn. So next slide. Okay, the most important part of voter protection are the election workers, the judges, the clerks. If we have great judges and clerks, voter protection is obsolete because everything will run smoothly and there won't be a need for me. So I believe the most important thing you can do this year in 2020 is volunteer to be an election judge or clerk. That will go the farthest towards ensuring that we have a fair and open democracy. We also run a hotline. We do this in conjunction with the Texas Democratic Party. They have a statewide hotline. Any Harris County voter who calls into that hotline to report some issue at the polls or who has a question, we are notified of that in Harris County, and we can reach out to that voter directly to try to resolve the problem or to answer their question. We also keep our lines at the party open on election day, HCDPs, just regular lines. And if you call in there and have a problem, there will be someone to answer your question, or you can be transferred to our team of attorneys who can help you. Okay, poll watchers. Poll watchers are volunteers that go into polling locations to observe. We appoint them officially. We give them some very quick, it's about an hour-long online training, and we ask you to go to a certain location just to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Poll watchers are great because they can get information to me very quickly, right? So if, for example, they're at a location and all of the equipment goes down and the judge is trying to manage the voters who are there, the poll watcher could immediately step outside and call me, and I can get in touch with the county clerk immediately to tell them that all of the equipment has gone down and we need some help at that location. We send watchers to locations that have historically high Democrat turnout. We also send them to locations that historically have had problems. And sometimes we send them because the judge asks us to send one because they want a poll watcher there just to observe what's going on and to help them get information back to us more quickly. Okay, so we also have a legal boiler room. On election day, we have a team of attorneys like myself who have experience doing voter protection. We answer the hotline, answer any questions, and just do whatever we can to make sure that the voting process is as smooth as possible. Okay, how can you help? So first and foremost, sign up to be an election judge or clerk. As I said, this is the most important thing you can do. Great judges and clerks are more important than anything else. If you cannot be an election judge or clerk because perhaps you don't have the time to devote to that, sign up to be a poll watcher. Poll watchers, as I said, it's an hour-long training and you can sign up for as little as a 2-hour shift. Recruit your friends, tell people about this, get them to volunteer, and spread the word of what we're doing here. Tell people that there's a hotline they can call if they have any problems with voting or they have any questions. Tell your friends who are judges that we are here to support them if they have any problems and they would like our help. Okay, so coronavirus. Okay, first of all, let me say that I believe, and I understand that HCDP also believes, the single most important thing we could do in Texas is make sure that everyone can request a mail-in ballot under the statute as it exists today. Many of you probably saw in the news in the past 24 hours that yesterday TDP's hearing with a judge in Travis County, they had their hearing for a temporary injunction, and the judge ruled in their, we think the judge will rule in their favor. He indicated that he will. This will certainly be appealed. So I can go more into that later in the questions. But I think the short thing to say about this is I do believe mail-in ballots would be the best way to protect everyone in 2020 given coronavirus. But even if we do not get to expand that, we are taking as many steps as we can to protect people for in-person voting as well. So there are two prongs to that, right? The first is protecting election workers. And I know some of you are concerned about volunteering to be election workers because you are afraid of catching coronavirus. We are working with the county clerk to put in as many safeguards as we possibly can. So for example, we are trying to get PPE so that you will have masks and gloves and hand sanitizer and everything else that is needed. We are also working to get you some training so you know how to use that PPE. We are also trying to move the clerk training to online as much as possible so that you don't have to sit in a room with lots of other clerks for a whole day getting training in person. We're going to work with the clerk to do everything we can to keep you safe. We also need to protect our voters. And there are many ways to do that as well. Keeping the lines down will help protect voters. We're working with the clerk to institute distancing within the polls so that each voting booth would be 6 feet apart from another one, and so that as you walk into the polling location, you would be separated by all other voters and the clerks by 6 feet. And we're working with the clerk to put in place whatever we can that will help people vote safely during 2020. Okay.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and open the floor to any questions that you may have.
There's some right here. Nicole, does the hotline number change for each election?
No. So Texas Democratic Party's hotline number is 844-TX-VOTES, VOTES. That's always the same. It's even open now. If you had a question about voting today, you could call that number.
Yes, and we'll send a follow-up email as well with all this information, the hotline number, you know, how to share information on applying to be an election worker and a poll watcher. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Here's another precinct chair or a question from Aaron. If we're a precinct chair that's expressed interest in being a judge and are not chosen, will we be considered for another position, or will that be a different process?
So if you're a precinct chair and well, I have a question then. Did we reach out to you and ask you to be? Okay, and you did say yes? Okay, so Aaron, could you email me, Devon, DEVOUN, @harrisdemocrats.com? And I'll make sure that's taken care of for you.
And also, there's a question about people agreeing to preside as judges, and they have been agreeing to do that. Of course, as Nicole just explained, we're striving to ensure, like, if poll workers are not safe and voters are not safe, then we're not going to push for people to work and vote under those conditions. We do need people to vote, which is why we're fighting very hard for vote by mail.
I see a question from Julie. How do we confirm that you are an election judge? Julie, if you would like to do the same and email Devon or Polly, or we can get your email from this registration and confirm with you, and we'll send you an email right after this presentation. For those that jumped on this late, we have recorded this meeting, so we will send it in a follow-up email to everyone who registered and participated, so you'll be able to watch it later and share with others who were not able to jump on. Let's see, another question from Ronald. Can election clerks be non-registered voters?
No.
Yeah, and Nicole, I mean, if you want to give some legal feedback on that, you can.
I mean, I could pull up the code and read it, but I think just the short answer is you need to be a registered voter.
Except for student clerks, I believe, right? Student clerks can be
16-year-olds can be election clerks as well under the special student clerk program. It's a great program. I encourage you to reach out to the teenagers in your life and suggest that they do this.
A question from Manuel. Are all precinct chairs going to be open for the runoff election?
Repeat the question for me.
Oh, will all precincts be open for the runoff election?
Do they mean in terms of location? Like, will there be polling locations in each precinct for the runoff election? And if that's the question, then yeah. I don't think there's ever a location in every precinct.
Okay. Let's see. Amanda sent a question. Has the date changed for registering voters for the runoff as well? So yes, the new date for the deadline is June 15th is the last day folks can register to vote for the runoff election. Okay, another question from Linda. Will small voting polling locations be combined with larger locations?
So we're still working on the locations with the county clerk. We would like to have as many locations as possible.
Okay, I see a question from Elena. how much time is needed to effectively prepare to vote by mail, specifically in terms of printing out and mailing ballots in time. So our field team is, currently, along with all the volunteers, clubs and orgs, and precinct chairs, are calling every day into our vote by mail universe. So individuals who are eligible to vote by mail have been getting calls and have been getting signed up to vote by mail. We can also share a link in the follow-up email on how you can vote by mail, or how you can sign up people to vote by mail, as well as the link to join us in our phone banks, as we call voters and ask them if they would be interested in receiving those applications. And then the deadline for the vote by mail is going to be July 3rd, received, not postmarked, for the application. A question from Francis: will PPEs include shields and foot covers along with gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, and etc.?
We don't know that yet. We're working with the county clerk to figure out exactly what they can provide. Obviously, we want as much as possible.
Thank you. I see a question from Vivian. What's the difference between election judge and a presiding judge?
So the election judge and presiding judge are basically interchangeable. Some people say election judge, some people say presiding judge, but the presiding judge is basically the word that we go by. But a presiding judge is responsible completely for that polling location. Everything that entails picking up and dropping off material, properly setting up the location, opening and closing the location, ensuring voter accuracy and a comfortable bipartisan atmosphere, and hiring their staff.
Thank you. Okay, last question we see here from Sherry. In the general election, will there be a Republican presiding judge and a Democratic presiding judge for each polling location, or one presiding judge and the other alternate judge?
You guys want me to take this, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in the general, because it's not a primary, there will be one presiding judge and one alternate judge in each location. The presiding judge will be of the political party that won that district in the gubernatorial election, the last gubernatorial election. So if that area went for the Democrat, then the presiding judge will be a Democrat and the Republican will be the alternate, and vice versa if that area went for the Republican gubernatorial candidate in the last gubernatorial election.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Let's see. Sorry, Eliza, will this presentation be available after the call? Yes, we will send a recording of the presentation and links and any resources that we went over in a follow-up email. Let's see. Another question from Linda. With the virus in mind, will someone not fitting the mail-in ballot criteria of 65 or older or disabled be able to request or will a mail-in ballot, or will they have to wait for court ruling?
Nicole, you can take that.
Yeah, so we haven't seen the judge's order from yesterday yet, or I haven't seen it yet. I don't believe it's been issued yet. What I'm expecting it to say is that under the current definition of disabled, we are all eligible to request a vote by mail ballot. However, that order will certainly be appealed. So I don't feel like I'm in a position yet to advise anyone on who can apply for the vote by mail ballots unless you are traditionally disabled, over 65, or you are out of state in the ways you're absentee, right? We're just gonna have to wait and see what happens as this plays out in the courts.
Thank you. Let's see, Amanda has another question. Is there anything we can do to help find polling locations? Are y'all looking for volunteers to call voters to register for mail-in ballots? Yes to the second question. Amanda, we can connect after this. Like I said in the follow-up email, I'll send information about our efforts about getting people signed up for vote by mail, but we can also connect with this. I can connect you with the field team right after the conversation. But to the question, is there anything we can do to help find polling locations?
So currently, we've designated polling locations in conjunction with the Republican Party as well as the county clerk's office. But we always do accept, if anybody has any type of idea of a better polling location. I mean, you can always submit it to us, and we can always advocate for that location if we feel that it would be a better location. So if you do have any suggestions, you can always email us, and it will always be advocated for if we feel like that's going to be the better option.
Thank you. Let's see, we have a question from Aaron. Will judge duties change or disappear if vote by mail is approved?
I was trying to type an answer for that. So what I imagine could be a scenario, and Nicole and Devon can to chime in at any point. I imagine that we would have to increase the ballot board. We would have to make the ballot board a lot larger to handle that influx of ballots. I would think that the parties would be recruiting some of our best judges to be a part of that ballot board, especially the judges who are also precinct chairs. They would probably be our first picks. Do you guys think that? I mean, we are not really talking about it right now because we're still fighting for the expansion of VBM. But if that's what happens, that's where our minds are going right now.
I mean, and not to mention, I mean, the COVID-19 situation and our current voting situation, all of this is new to all of us. We're figuring this out as we go, and some things we don't have the answers to right now. I mean, we will have the answers to some of these questions, but right now we can't really say what is exactly going to happen because we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this situation can turn better in the next month, or it can get worse. We really don't know. So as we're going, we will keep everyone in the loop. We will keep you updated on the changes that are being made.
So in terms of the judge, best case scenario, right? Everyone can use vote by mail, but that doesn't mean that everyone will. We will still have in-person voting. So for the judges at those locations, there will be expanded duties because you're going to need to sanitize the booths as the day progresses. And I don't know yet the protocols for that. I think the county clerk is working on it, but yes, there will be more to do than normally because we need to sanitize everything, and you have to protect yourself and the voters to the extent you can.
Yeah, you're going to be frontliners if you're going to be working those positions, which is really, it's admirable, but we're taking that very seriously. Not just the parties, but also the county and Texas.
Okay, thank you everyone for all of your questions. If you do have any more questions that we did not get to answer, we will send a follow-up email with our emails on there, so please feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns that you have. But we really appreciate everybody hopping on, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks everyone, be safe and have an awesome day.